It's time once more for All Elite to go beyond the waking world. I'm Tom Campbell from Cultaholic Wrestling, and this is what happened at AEW WrestleDream 2025. First things first, we had the pre-show tailgate brawl, which had Big Boom AJ and Big Justice hosting an actual tailgate party in Boca Raton, which got crashed in aggressive fashion by Rocky Romero and Trent Beretta, who proceeded to put a Roppongi Vice beatdown on AJ. The Monsters! There was some wrestling too, with the Death Riders defeating the Conglomeration and Paragon in 8-man tag team action. Hook and Eddie Kingston chewing through the Frat house in dominant doubles fashion whilst the LFI watched on. Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale besting Penelope Ford and Megan Bayne. And in a match that spilled into the start of the actual pay-per-view, complete with show opening pyro going off mid-battle, FTR defeated JetSpeed with a little help from Stokely Hathaway, gripping the grippers of Speedball Mike Bailey. The show starts proper with Tony Schiavone introducing the wife of the legendary Lou Thesz, Charlie Thesz, at ringside. She has a front row seat for the grudge match between Thekla and Jamie Hayter, with all outside interference barred. They go back and forth with strikes, Thekla trying and failing to get distance outside the ring, meeting the LED boards and the steel steps, even getting chopped to oblivion in front of Mrs. Thesz. Thekla takes the lead with a crossbody to the outside and fakes out a handshake to Charlie Thesz like the toxic spider she is, before strapping in the tarantula and proceeding to toy with Hayter. Jamie strikes back with a missile dropkick and stops a spidery comeback on the top rope, pushing back into the match with a series of kicks and a neck breaker. The two go back and forth with really hard punches until Thekla clasps in the octopus stretch, but Hayter is able to get unstuck with a backbreaker. A spear from the spider only yields a 2, but it's 2 beefy lariats from Jamie that prove to be the Hayterade that drowns the spider. Queen Aminata rushes to the ring to celebrate with Jamie Hayter, whilst the Triangle of Terror stare from the ramp. This tangled web still being weaved. Next, the Young Bucks, or rather the $32.17 Bucks, head to the ring with their expenses report on the screen with insufficient funds playing across the arena. Their opponents out to Baltimore as Tarzan Boy, and all the love from the AEW faithful are Jurassic Express. It's a grudge match with the winner receiving a cool $500,000. Jungle Jack Perry and Luchasaurus start strong over Matt and Nick Jackson with a dominant display by the Dinosaur and some Healy shenanigans too. Jack Perry distracting the referee whilst Luchasaurus bites Matt. The Bucks beat a retreat only to be dropped outside the ring by a moonsaulting Luchasaurus and a dive over the top by Jungle Jack. Jack even brains Matt Jackson with a Jurassic Express sign. What fun we are having! But the fun stops when the Bucks mount a comeback with sliced bread number 2 on the outside to Luchasaurus and Jack Perry alone and isolated by the Bucks. A prolonged tag team beating by Matt and Nick ends with Perry reversing a tag combo into a head scissors and bringing the Dinosaur back from extinction, who wipes out the Jacksons with a double clothesline, a plethora of kicks, and a chokeslam that sends the Jacksons crashing into one another. The Bucks avoid Doomsday from the Express and return to double-teaming Jack Perry, but their combo coup de grace Liger Bomb only gets a 2. Luchasaurus saves Perry from Doomsday outside the ring, which leads to a chicken fight and turns into the Bucks landing a cutter and a sunset flip bomb onto their opponents. Back in the ring, Perry avoids a TK driver. He isn't able to avoid a package pile driver with the stomp though, but it only yields a 2. An EVP trigger to Jack Perry would have gotten the much-needed 3, but Luchasaurus is on hand to stop the rot. Perry retaliates with a stunning run-up Hurricane Rana and German suplex combo as Luchasaurus follows up with a chokeslam and a moonsault. Together, Jurassic Express land a Doomsday Device combo afterwards, but it's only a 2. Perry lands the emphatic punch to the guts, and together, Jurassic Express land the TK driver, but Nick Jackson Jackson is there just in time to keep the dream alive. The Bucks buck up and take Perry to a super kick party in order to EVP trigger him soon after, but the 3 isn't found. Luchasaurus saves Perry from the TK driver, leading to a countdown to extinction for a count up to 3 for the Jurassic Express win. Perry and Luchasaurus get the nod and the $500K purse. In an act of kindness, Jurassic Express extend their hands to the Young Bucks and even offer some of the money they've just won. But they're blindsided by the Don Callis family members Luke Archer, Josh Alexander, and Mark Davis. The Young Bucks, instead of helping out Jurassic Express and instead of helping out the Don Callis family, just decide to leave. Enter the returning Kenny Omega, who tries to talk some sense into the Young Bucks before giving up and charging to the ramp on his own to even the odds and send the Don Callis family fleeing. The Hurt Syndicate's Tornado Trio's top contendership tussle starts immediately with Ricochet, Bishop Khan, and Toa Liona jumping MVP, Bobby Lashley, and Shelton Benjamin on the way to the ring. It's a wild and a woolly brawl that sees the Demand moving the furniture to crucifix powerbomb Shelton Benjamin off the steel steps and through a table onto Bobby Lashley, leaving MVP all on his lonesome against the bold and the brave. He gets the odd shot in, but MVP takes a pasting here. Ricochet hopes to have it done with a shooting star press with a Gates of Agony assist, but Shelton is able to make the save. MVP dispatches the Demand until Bobby comes back around and runs through him like a hot knife through gosh darn butter. An innovative double team on the GOA is followed up with a Dominator onto Ricochet for a near fall. Toa and Bishop somewhat save Ricky from a superplex by powerbombing Bobby Lashley at the same time. Still hurts Ricky though. Ricochet attempts to dive out of the ring, but Shelton Benjamin changes his trajectory with an overhead suplex out of the ring instead. Shelty B following up with a cheeky dive of his own. A moment of redemption for MVP follows when he takes down a springboarding Ricochet, following up with a ballin' elbow and a fisherman suplex before the cover gets broken. Khan nearly gets Bobby down with a clutch, but a step-up kick by Shelton saves the day and leads to Bobby bashing the Bishop with a spear. When the dust settles, Ricochet is all alone with the Hurt Syndicate. But before he can have his soul beaten from his body, Toa Liona pulls Ricochet out of the ring and steps in his place. And he's given an almighty spear for his trouble, giving Bobby the 3, the Syndicate the win, and a future AEW Trios title match. Will Mark Briscoe thrive, or will Kyle Fletcher survive? The best of 5 is live next at WrestleDream for the AEW TNT title. Both men are 2 wins apiece, and they start with some advantage deciding technical wrestling. Kyle steps outside the ring when the going gets a bit tough. Briscoe allows him back in to get back to the Techers. Fletcher strikes at this point, and Briscoe returns the favor, sending the Aussie over the top, and this leads to fighting around the ring. Briscoe teases a chair-assisted dive to the floor, but Fletcher takes the chair away, only to receive the boots of Briscoe anyway. Briscoe pairs this by sitting Fletcher on the chair and landing a senton over the top rope to the seated Fletch. The chicken farmer clucks up when he takes too long to attempt a somersault senton, giving Fletcher ample time to move out of the way so Mark lands on the floor. Fletcher puts the pressure right on here with a powerbomb onto the challenger onto the upright set of steel steps. Fletcher's slow, deliberate offense keeps him in control. A Michinoku driver, a back body drop, and a sleeper, however, cannot keep the challenger down. Briscoe battles back with strikes to the head until both men start kicking each other and knocking each other's blocks off for a double down. When both men get back up, they exchange chops and strikes, with Briscoe gaining the lead with a fisherman's buster. Both men get their signature moves blocked until Fletch lands a half Nelson suplex and an incredible sit-out last ride powerbomb. A move so powerful he seemed to break Briscoe's belt. However, it only gets a 2. Mark Briscoe tries to avoid it, but ultimately succumbs to a top rope superplex for a 2 count. Briscoe gets some respite when he lands a jaw-dropping J Driller on the apron. Briscoe will drive elbows into the evil heart of Kyle Fletcher, but they won't secure the win. An attempted J Driller leads to a half-and-half suplex, but Briscoe's not being denied. He drops Fletcher with the Driller, but Fletcher just barely gets one finger to the ropes to break the count. This kicks into high gear as we get to the closing moments, but it is a low blow, a lawn dart, a flying kick, and a picture-perfect top turnbuckle brainbuster that allows Kyle Fletcher to put the chicken farmer down for 3 and retain the TNT title. The AEW Women's World title on the line next, with timeless Toni Storm facing the intergalactic champ Chris Statlander. A feeling out process between two renders a stalemate early on. The challenger hip attacking Stat to the floor, but Stat storms back with a moonsault off the apron. She carries Toni up the steps on her shoulders and unceremoniously dumps her back into the ring, following up with a senton for a 2 count. Toni attempts to find a way back against Statlander, but she's shut down with a clothesline, then a backdrop, and a twisting Vader bomb for 2. The storm begins to rise, though, when Toni busts out a suplex and avoids a corner attack with a tornado DDT and a tiger driver for 2. Another hip attack is countered with an electric chair drop into an octopus stretch by the champ, with the challenger countering into a rear naked choke, but no taps either side. Toni turns Saturday Night Fever into a running hip attack. Stat counters a Storm 0 by protecting the neck, and she follows that up with an Area 451, but there is no 3 count to be found. Another Storm 0 rolls through, but Statlander weathers it and gets a nail-biting 2 count, wasting no time in dropping Storm with Saturday Night Fever. Stat follows up by wrapping her legs around Toni Storm's head, looking to extract a decisive submission win. But Toni is extracting the urine if she says she's tapping out here. Far from it. Toni screams for Statlander to effing kill her, which she metaphorically does with another Saturday Night Fever to get the win and retain the AEW Women's Championship. Post-match, Storm and Statlander share a hug before Toni leaves Chris to stand tall as Women's World Champion. But Stat doesn't have much time to be joyous, as the AEW TBS champion, Mercedes Moné, or rather Mercedes Ultimo Moné, makes her way to the ring with the Frat Party holding the rest of her championships. Moné threw down an open challenge to any current champion around the world, and she shoos Chris Statlander from the ring so she can have her match. Statlander leaves, being mocked by the Frat Party as she goes. And this leaves Mercedes Moné's TBS Open Challenge to be answered by interim Ring of Honor Women's TV Champion Mina Shirakawa. Both titles on the line, and Mina gets first blood when she puts Moné in a figure 4 to hobble and wobble her. Mina dances her way through an early lead, much to the frustration of the CEO, and Moné gives as good as she gets with a crossface and a lung blower, piling the pressure on Shirakawa, but not able to score the win yet. Moné gives us the Guerrero special, but the frog splash is blocked by an aggressive Shirakawa, leading to a strike fest of punches and drop kicks. Mina does some damage to the knee with a cloverleaf knee wrench and a dragon screw over the ropes, and from here Mina is grinding on the champ, returning to the figure 4 that started the whole match, but Moné is able to roll to the ring apron and save her title. The damage has already been done though. Moné sacrifices herself to land a Moneymaker and a Meteora on the hardest part of the ring, but it's not getting that 3 count. Moné goes for one too many Meteoras, and Mina avoids the corner attack, rallying with a discus punch and a very tight figure 4 until Moné breaks it up with a cover attempt. Moné tries to use the ropes to get the 3, but she is well and truly caught in 4K. Moné manipulates the referee until he's all the way behind her so she can poke look Mina in the eyes and get a near fall off the Moneymaker. A second Moneymaker is only saved by Mina at the very last possible nanosecond, grabbing the ropes to a huge ovation from the crowd. A livid Monet gets to her feet with evil intentions. She goes for a backstabber. She goes for another Moneymaker, but Mina is able to wriggle out of all of them. She is battering Monet in the corner to break up this Moneymaker, and Monet catches Mina, however, with a backslide on the rebound, puts her foot on the ropes for extra leverage. She gets the 3 count. She retains her TBS title. She becomes the new interim Ring of Honor Women's TV Champion and bags her 11th title in the process. Mercedes Monet's celebration post-match is interrupted by Chris Statlander. A little revenge for the earlier issues they had, dropping Monet on the canvas and raising her women's world title aloft. The AEW World Tag Team titles are on the line. The champs, Brody King and Ring of Honor champion Bandido versus the Don Callis family members, AEW Unified Champion Kazuchika Okada, and the new IWGP World Champion Konosuke Takeshita. Some ambivalence between the challengers, but they work strong against the well-oiled champions in the early going of this one. Brody gets isolated by Okada and Takeshita. Okada knocking Bandido off the apron to the floor. Brody King will roar to life. He'll send Takeshita to the outside and level Okada before tagging Bandido, who will twisting senton into the match and assisted moonsault out of the ring. The champs rally here, with Bandido being catapulted into Okada and Takeshita being squished between the LED board and Brody's body. The champs made the mistake of taking a little Macarena break, allowing Okada and Takeshita to recover and wipe them out. Okada took a beat to tell the crowd that he thought that they were number one. Bandido is bullied by the Unified Champ and the IWGP Champ, with Brody getting obliterated outside the ring for good measure. We get a miscalculation as Takeshita misinterprets an Okada middle finger as targeted at him. Looks like they're about to come to blows before Bandido bursts back to life and tags in Brody King, who lays waste to both of them. However, the challengers turn it around when Okada blocks a Brody superplex and ends up absorbing an air raid crash from Okada. Brody tags Bandido, but despite being on fumes, Bandido's able to hang in there. He and Takeshita go back and forth with acid hurricane ranas a short while later. Takeshita lands a blue thunder bomb on Brody, only to catch a shooting star press from Bandido moments later. Takeshita will once more be isolating Bandido, working over his injured shoulder before bursting up from a hurricane rana with a knee to the face. He goes for one more, this time with the knee pad down, but Okada tags himself in. Okada looks to hook up the Rainmaker, but Bandido counters with a double knee stomp and gets Bandido back into the fight. An intense back and forth leads to all 4 men dropping big signature moves until a 4-way German suplex, with Brody King doing the literal heavy lifting, putting everybody down. When the pieces are reset, Brody King is taken out by a stereo dropkick and knee combo by the challengers, and Bandido ducks a Rainmaker, leaving Takeshita to absorb Okada's own finisher. It's the one thing that they didn't want to happen. A smile appears across Okada's face, seeing what he did to Takeshita, and he ends up walking into a knee to the face by Bandido, who then goes for the 24-plex, but his shoulder gives out. Brody's there to drop Okada on his head and encourage his buddy to give his finisher another go. As Brody dives out of the ring onto Takeshita, Bandido does indeed try the 24-plex once more, and this time he nails it, picking up the 3 count on Okada to retain the World Tag Team titles. We get Bandido's son joining his dad briefly in the ring to celebrate before a post-match Macarena by the champs. Backstage, Renee Paquette attempts to interview a disassociated Toni Storm. To comfort her is the former interim Ring of Honor Women's TV Champion Mina Shirakawa. Toni Storm says, "We lost everything. Shirakawa disagrees. We have each other, and we see them embrace. I think we're looking at the new AEW Women's Tag Team Champions, personally. The semi-main event of the evening is Hangman Page defending his AEW World title against Samoa Joe. That can only mean one thing. They're planning something really disgusting for the main event if they're getting the title match done now. Even Stevens for the first minute or so until Samoa Joe steamrolls Page with a shoulder block as he bounces off the ropes. Page gathers himself outside the ring before coming back swinging, focusing on the injured arm of Joe with an arm breaker over the ropes. It's all Page until Joe lands a walloping elbow as Page comes off the ropes. And from here, he dominates and systematically destroys Hangman. Page is able to stop the Rock briefly when he lands a dive onto Samoa Joe, but Joe avoids a follow-up one completely, but Page will hit a running drop kick before they get back into the ring and reset, with Page almost immediately absorbing an STO. It's slow and deliberate from Joe. Hangers fires up, Joe drops him with a boot. Hangers fires up, Joe drops him with a power slam. Paintbrushes by Joe turn to strikes by Joe, which wake Hangman up and turn this beating into a back and forth strike fest. Page starts finding himself here, landing a backdrop and knocking Joe off the apron. Hangman looks like he's about to leap out of the ring, but Joe gets back into the ring. So Page instead moonsaults back into the ring, seemingly looking to land on Joe, but seemingly missing him completely. Gets a 2 count anyway. Joe's back in the driving seat from here, applying 3 consecutive submission holds, but Page is resilient and he forces a break. Joe attempts a superplex, but Hangman is able to fight out and land a sunset flip powerbomb. Page gives some fire after this, swearing like a sailor. Page is going to rock Joe with a dead eye and then land not 1, not 2, but 3 consecutive buckshot lariats to get the 3 and retain the AEW World title. The Ops enter the ring to join Samoa Joe and Hangman Page to celebrate the match. Joe and Page embrace. And then Joe, whammy, levels Hangman Page, and he and the Ops lay a beating on the world champion. Hobbs and Shibata hold Page up so Joe can blast Page with the world title belt before hitting him with the muscle buster. The Ops leave Page KO'd on the canvas, and Samoa Joe steps onto Page's unconscious body as he exits. The story between Hangman Page and Samoa Joe is far from over. We cut backstage where Mercedes Moné calls out Chris Statlander for ruining her historic night, and the challenge is made for a third match between the two that will take place at AEW Full Gear for Chris Statlander's AEW Women's World title. The match isn't made official, and we're told we'll have updates on the forthcoming episode of Dynamite. With that, we come to our main event. Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin in an I Quit match. After Moxley wipes his feet on Darby Allin's AEW Everest flag, Darby goes radio rental, drop-kicking Moxley out of the ring and landing a dive outside. Marina Shafir tries to grab Darby, but it's a distraction tactic and Moxley takes Allin down. Mox wraps a chain around his wrists and starts punching Darby in the mouth, drawing literal first blood. He also busts Darby's ear open by bouncing it off the middle rope. The pace was set when Jon Moxley took a skewer and drove it under Darby Allin's fingernail before biting it and stamping on it. Mox whips Darby towards the steel steps, but Darby dives over them and comes back with a missile dropkick. I'm going to be honest, I'm still thinking about the skewer being driven under the fingernail. I feel a bit sick. Back in the ring after a striking affair, Darby lands Code Red and begins choking Moxley over the top rope with the Everest flag until Mox gouges his eyes to stop him. Shafir saves Moxley from a coffin drop on the apron, and Darbs is wiped out, giving Mox a bit of a respite. Back in the ring, Mox begins whipping Darby with his belt, seemingly reluctant to do so, but doing it anyway. Darby takes a right pasting here, beckoning Mox on for more. Darby rallies briefly, but gets shut down when Moxley turns a coffin drop into a German suplex. From here, Darby goes into his bag of tricks and pulls out some lighter fluid, dousing Jon Moxley in the stuff and getting set to set him on fire. The Death Riders run interception at this point allow Mox to hit a cutter, after which he wipes himself down with a towel and then goes through Darby's bag to find a taser, which after a Maria Shafir low blow, he's able to blast Darby in the stomach with. A Death Rider DDT onto a steel chair and a Bulldog choke still isn't enough to make Darby submit. Claudio Castagnoli offers his services by military pressing Darby into and through the announce table. Pac then drags Darby's lifeless body around the ring so Moxley can drop him on the other side with a Death Rider DDT off the apron and through 2 tables. Still, Darby Allin refuses to quit, despite Jon Moxley screaming in his face to do so. Where do we go from here? Why, a fish tank, of course, to attempt to drown Darby Allin. Moxley holds Darby's head underwater in the fish tank at least 3 times, but Darby Allin still ain't saying he quits. As Moxley stalks the ring, not quite sure what to do next, the lights go out. When they come back on, Sting is standing in the ring. He smashes Moxley with the baseball bat. The Death Riders get a paddle in as well. The fish tank gets destroyed with the baseball bat. And then he throws the bat to Darby Allin and takes his leave. Marina Shafir gets in Sting's face as he tries to head up the ramp. And Sting picks her up and takes her away with him, neutralizing the Death Rider's secret weapon. Mox begs Darby to hit him with the bat, which Darby absolutely does. Darby Allin wraps the AEW flag around Mox's neck and puts him in the sharpshooter, with Jon Moxley eventually saying, "I quit," to bring the match to a halt. AEW WrestleDream goes off air with Darby Allin standing tall, waving the AEW flag that he took to Everest and he has just taken to hell and back with him in an I Quit match against Jon Moxley. So that was AEW WrestleDream 2025. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. I'm Tom Campbell from Cultaholic Wrestling, still thinking about that bit with Darby Allin's fingernails. Stay safe and love you. Bye.